Hey, what's up, everyone? Today we're going to be cooking some St. Louis style ribs, and these are actually um, the seasoned ones that you can get from Costco. I was at Costco the other day, and I was looking for the regular ribs, but they actually completely sold out every last packet, and all they had left were these seasoned side ribs. And I've seen these before at Costco, and I've always been very hesitant about getting them because I thought, well, what if I don't like the seasoning? What if they're too salty? But since that's all they had left, I thought I'd give it a shot. And today I'm going to cook them two different ways. One in the oven for about 2 hours, low and slow, 275 degrees, and the other way in the Instapot. And I thought I'd compare and see if there's any differences between the two methods. So what you're going to want to do is go ahead and get your oven preheated, and it's going again for 2 hours at 275, nice and low and slow. So I put my oven on bake, and then it hit 275. And my oven reached that temperature instantly because I already had it preheated from another thing I was doing in the oven before. But yours might take a few minutes. And let's go ahead and get started with the prepping of the tray now. So this is my roasting tray. It's not nonstick. So I thought maybe what I'd do is just add a little bit of oil, olive oil, to this pan and brush it around a little bit where I believe that the ribs will actually be sitting. This was probably not necessary because the ribs have a lot of fat and moisture on them, and they probably won't stick too much, but I thought this couldn't hurt and it would just prevent any issues with sticking, and thought it was a good idea. So I went ahead and just brushed that oil around, and then the next step is just to put the ribs right onto that tray. What I'm doing is putting the ribs in the middle here, and I'm putting the meat side up. And I thought that the meat and the fat would actually render out the fat a little bit and soak into the meat and not dry it out and not have the fat also just sitting at the bottom of the tray. And I was actually surprised that the ribs here, the St. Louis style ribs, the membrane's still on the ribs. I didn't expect that. So I was a little bit surprised, as you probably see in other recipes to ask you to take the membrane off. But since the seasoning's been sitting on the ribs so long, it's probably penetrated past that membrane and it probably won't be an issue. The next step is to cover your ribs in some aluminum foil, and that will keep the ribs nice and moist, keep the moisture inside. And I'm going to go ahead now put them in my preheated oven, and I've actually positioned the rack into the middle position. And now we're just going to let that go for 2 hours at 275. The next version that we're going to be doing is the Instapot ribs. Now, I've timed this to finish around the same time as my oven ribs. And I think that the Instapot ribs will actually take about 50 minutes in total. Even though they only cook for 20 minutes, you have to allow for some time for the Instapot to heat up, cook for the 20 minutes, and we're going to be doing a full natural release. And that's why I've timed it about 1 hour into my oven cook time. So I've gone ahead and taken the lid off, and we're going to be adding 1 cup of water. I've seen some people, they add cider, they've add apple juice. You can do all types of things. I don't think it makes a huge difference, honestly, in the end. So I just go ahead and use some water. And then I put the ribs vertically on the trivet inside the Instapot, put the lid back on, and then we're gonna be cooking at high pressure, and we'll set it to manual, and we're going to go for 20 minutes in total. And then you just want to make sure that your Instapot is in the seal position, which is, pointing up. Anyone that has an Instapot probably know this. And you just let it go. And that's a great thing about an Instapot. There's not much more to do besides that. All right, so now that the Instapot is done its thing, it's been cooking for 20 minutes, and then I did a full natural release. And again, with the warm up period as well, you're looking at a total, it took about 50 minutes in total, so just under an hour, which is what I kind of expected. So I took them out and put them on a cutting board. They were so tender that I couldn't take them out without The ribs kind of falling apart a little bit on the left there, but it's fine. As you can see, the meat really did pull back from the bone a little bit, and it really looks like it's been cooking for such a long time, which it hasn't. It's been in the Instapot, and that's the great thing about it. The next thing we're going to do is take the ribs out of the oven. They've been going for 2 hours at 275 again, and they smell absolutely fantastic. I'm just going to carefully take them out of the oven, and I'm going to be careful not to just drop these on the ground. And so there you have it. We have our Instapot ribs at the bottom, and at the top, we have our oven ribs. As you can see, they're very, very tender, both of them. The oven ribs, I would say maybe are a little bit less tender than the Instapot ribs, but they're both really, really tender. I'd love to just start eating these right away because I find that the Costco St. Louis style rib seasoning did a great job of flavoring these ribs, and they smell incredible. But what we want to do first is broil these in the oven with a little bit of barbecue sauce so that it looks a lot better. It'll look a lot more like just traditional ribs, and also it's going to add that great barbecue sauce flavor. So what I did is just apply a little bit of barbecue sauce, and then I put them in the broiler. And I was very careful to watch these. I thought it'd take about 5 minutes. Actually, after 4 minutes, I pulled them out because I saw there was some smoke going on, and I personally just don't like anything really charred in my food. So I know some people would probably want this a little bit darker in terms of the broiling and the caramelization. But if that's your thing, that's great. Just my only advice would be very careful about how long you leave them in there, and watch them very carefully as you're broiling them because they can easily burn. So there you have it. We have our final product here. We have the Instapot ribs at the bottom, super tender. They look really, really, really good, and we have our oven ribs. Again, now, after I shot this video, I had some of these ribs with my wife, and I asked her what she thought, and we actually kind of came to the same consensus of these and the final result, which was why I made this video. So here's my final verdict. For the Instapot ribs, I think that they were so tender, so good, so flavorful. On the tenderness scale, if they were a 10, I would say the oven ribs were a 9. Um, and I'm going to cut into them, and you could see it falls apart. I mean, like, I have a sharp knife here, but really it just falls apart very easily. And actually, because they didn't remove the membrane, the bottom part where the membrane's still attached is actually what's holding on to the rib. And maybe in the end, that's not such a bad thing because they allowed me to take the ribs out of the Instapot without it completely just falling apart. The next is the oven ribs, and I would say if the Instapot ribs were a 10 in tenderness and the oven ribs were a 9, I would say the oven ribs, if they were a 10 in flavor, the Instapot ribs were a 9 in flavor. So there's a little bit of trade off in either way. Instapot ribs a little bit more tender, oven ribs a little bit more flavorful. And you can add a little bit more barbecue sauce if you like, and eat them however you like. All right, so thanks for watching, and if you have a chance to try this out, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Please hit that like button and subscribe to us. Thanks. See you next time.